Well, we're moving on up to the sky, to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Oh, we're moving on up to the sky. We finally got a piece of the pie. Yeah, that's where we left off last time, was moving up. The disciples were moving up. They finally got up the stairs. They finally made that decision to trust Jesus again indefinitely. They get up in the room, the upper room. I'm sure you've heard of it in the Bible. It's in Acts. They were in the upper room. A lot of legends around that room. But if you really look at the reality of this, they're going up there and they're waiting for something that they don't know what they're waiting for. They have a hope in their heart. It's like they're talking to each other. It's like, well, I'm excited. Well, what are you excited about? I don't know, but something's coming. Something's big. I can feel something big coming. Well, what is it? I don't know, but it's really big, right? And so they're kind of probably getting over the cross while they're up there. They're chit-chatting. They're having prayer meetings. You know, things are looking really excited. Probably first day, the second day, they're getting all in one mind, in one accord, just really, talking about what happened at the cross and everything happening. They're having wow moments. Go, wow, this happened, that happened. Wow, that was Jesus, and day 1, day 2 goes by, day 3 goes by. They're praying and praying, and they're down to praying for the next door neighbor's great grandmother who may or may not pass away. And they're just kind of running out of things to do. And all of a sudden, Peter's like, there's, for some reason, this should have happened by now. It's not happening. And then he looks around. He's like, wow, the herd has been thinned out. Isn't that amazing when you go up? Whenever you're being elevated or you're going into a promotion with God, when God's about to do something brand new, that the herd gets thinned out. And I think sometimes we think it's an emptying and it's a stretching, it's all kinds of things, but at this point in that upper room, there were 2 people missing now. Not only Judas, but Jesus was gone. I'm sure Peter had a moment where he's looking around going, wow, you know what? We're just hitting on like 11 cylinders now. We need another 12 cylinders. I'm sure if we feel that spot right there where Judas used to be, God help him, I believe things are going to happen if I just fill these slots right here in this upper room. Right place, believe in God for everything. But obviously, the person missing is why God isn't answering. And so, he decides to roll the dice. And gets a set of dice out, pulls out a couple of guys, good guys. They're like, these are going to take Judas's place. And so basically, it's probably our equivalent to rock, scissors, paper to choose the person that's going to fill the void of Jesus. Sometimes we come to the end of ourselves. Sometimes, the biggest person to get out of the way is ourselves. And God will bring you to the end of yourself. He will bring you to the end of your timing. He will bring you to the end of you. There's a guy, Oswald Chambers, he said one time, read it, God is at the end of all things. And whenever you're coming to the end of a season and to the beginning, God will get you all the way to the end. And then have mercy on you when you go past, because nobody does this right, What happens in the upper room stays in the upper room. But all of a sudden, God doesn't answer things or do things the way we should think they should do. There's empty places in our houses, empty places in our churches. It looks like we're being thinned out and we got all kinds of hope. We're wondering what's going on. Well, God is making space for the new amazing grace. And sometimes we get confused on God's promotion, because a lot of time when God's promoting us, we're getting emptied. And he's getting everything out of the way that will hinder everything that he's going to do. And there's a verse in the Bible that says to rejoice in the barren places and expand how you think. It says to stretch the stakes of your tent. It's in Isaiah 54. This is Toby translation. But it says to expand the way you think about that space, because God's going to do more with that empty space than what should have been there. And sometimes we go back to our old ways, trying to fill old spaces in a new place. We're in a new time. We're in a new day. And we won't pull out an old pair of dice and fill an old position. That God is going to do something greater with that place there. God will empty us, and he will create a space that he can fill. And if you try to fill a space that God emptied, that's like standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon with a shovel trying to fill a hole. It's a God space. And only God's amazing grace can fill that God space. We can't. Even though they did. They rolled the dice. They picked a couple guys, Matthias. You really didn't hear much about them throughout the Bible. They didn't even get an honorable mention. They didn't do a whole lot, because I believe that space was going to be filled by somebody actually much worse than Judas, and his name was the Apostle Paul, and he wrote most of the Bible that we read today, and he is the apostle to the Gentiles. So they were trying to fill a space that they had no capacity to even know what God was about to do, because they were still thinking in an old Jewish mindset, doing old Jewish things of rolling dice to make God choices. And if God made this space, he is going to fill it with amazing grace. And you can roll the dice. You can do what you want. I think, God will give us pacifiers. It's basically what those guys were pacifiers, I think, until Paul got there. If you know the story of Paul, he was Saul, but he got converted. It was an amazing story, and they had no capacity to understand what God was going to do with that space. So God let them do their thing. So what I'm saying is, in a season of promotion, when God is doing great things for you and you're getting ready to go up, you're in the upper room, you're waiting in hope, there's empty spaces. The crowds are thinner. But that's because it's God's space for amazing grace. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you, keep you, and may his amazing grace shine upon you.